morning, WTOB listeners. This is Dylan Greenwood and Harold Eustache presenting For the Record with Greenwood Law. We have a very exciting show for you this weekend, and with us are two very special guests from the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office, and that is our esteemed Sheriff, Bobby Kimbrough.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Pleasure to have you here. And his Corporal Cofer. And we're here to talk about gun permits, concealed carry permits, all the ways in which you can qualify for those, the ways that you can not qualify for those, and all the issues that we see around concealed weapons and firearms in general. And it's become a really prevalent issue because I think you guys were telling us that gun purchase permits have skyrocketed this year, correct?
Yeah, there's been an uptick in requests for gun permits, guns, just in the whole system of guns and ammo.
And one of the things that we hear a lot, and I know even personally when I bought my first pistol, I did not have a concealed carry permit yet, and I went to go purchase the firearm, and I go, okay, well now I've purchased this, how do I get it home? Mm-hmm. Because you're aware that there's this law out there that unless you have a valid concealed carry permit, you are not allowed to conceal a gun. And I go, well, oh my gosh, how do I get it home? And I think that hypothetical or that occurrence is something that goes through a lot of people's minds when they first purchase a weapon. So what recommendations do you guys have when somebody first purchases a weapon and they are trying to take it home?
So, when you say purchase a weapon, I hope we're purchasing the weapon legally, not just purchasing it on the street. So the first thing you need is a purchase permit. You can get that at the sheriff's office. You go to a reputable gun dealer store, purchase your gun of choice. But then transporting it home, I would recommend that if you don't have a carry concealed, lock it in your trunk. Put it in the trunk of your car, lock the trunk, and continue on your way home. There's another way you could carry. You could set it on the seat openly to where in the event you were stopped, it wouldn't be construed that you were carrying it concealed.
But that's going to make some people nervous.
And that's where I was going with this. It's going to make a lot of people nervous in the event you get stopped, in the event you're in a vehicle and somebody look over and then see a gun on your seat. That's why I said originally that my way or my preferred way would be lock it in the trunk of your car. That's a safe way. You keep people from being nervous. I think that a lot of times people are just amazed by a gun and they want to show the world that they own or they possess a gun rather than carrying a gun in the proper way to carry it. I've always been taught that a gun is not for show. And so I would recommend that if you purchase a weapon, lock it in the trunk of your car.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, and I think that's accurate because the case law that surrounds concealment of weapons is somewhat dated, isn't it, Harold?
It is. The case law goes back to the 1880s for concealment, and for us, that's the case that we use to determine when somebody's charged with carrying a concealed weapon or carrying a concealed gun, whether or not it actually is concealed. And so from a legal perspective, that is an interesting question. It actually is a question that's litigated by both prosecutors and defense attorneys in the state of North Carolina and debated over because the issue becomes if there's just a piece of the weapon showing, is that concealment? If somebody has it covered but you can see the butt of it, is that concealment? And a lot of it comes down to intent, to whether or not somebody intended to conceal, because the term concealing has an intent aspect to it. Are you trying to hide it? And that's part of what that old case is about somebody hiding a weapon in their trench coat.
And that is a case-by-case basis. We've seen judges fall on both sides of that, depending upon the factual nature of the case. It is a very fact-specific inquiry that happens. The other thing that we always get asked about is, can a weapon be concealed even if it's not on my person? if it's not on me in some way? If I don't have it holstered, under some clothes or in a coat pocket, does that count as concealment? The answer can be yes, a resounding yes.
Right. I mean, the law on that is that if you have dominion and control over that weapon, and you have it concealed, and you don't have a permit to conceal it, you could be charged. And that's what I believe the sheriff is alluding to there. If you lock it in your trunk, you wouldn't have personal control over the weapon where you could reach it. And that's kind of where a lot of judges have determined if you can reach that weapon, then you have control over it. So if you lock it in your trunk, you're probably safe to not have dominion and control. One thing, Sheriff, that we do get a lot too is the question of if you do have it in your trunk, and let's say you're pulled over, what would be the recommendation for a driver as far as talking to an officer about that weapon?
One of the things that I will say is that you guys are going to always have a job as lawyers to argue the points of law, and because there's so many perspective on, as you're talking about concealment. I look at this table, to me it looks brown, then I look at it again, it looks black. We probably could argue the point of that. And so when you talk about concealing with the butt of the gun, what was the intent and what was the design? There's so many elements that you would get into. But what I would say, that if you're stopped by law enforcement and you have purchased your weapon, I mean, conversation prevents a lot of mishaps. So if I go purchase a gun today from my local gun dealer, and the police officer stops me, most times officers, stop, license, registration, they're having a conversation. He or she may say, do you have any weapons? Yes, sir, I just purchased a weapon from such and such a place. It is in my trunk locked. Here is my purchase permit. Officers don't get excited if the gun is in your trunk. You can't hurt me with it in your trunk. As long as you and I are right here. My concern comes when, we get into some squirrely areas of, the gun is accessible to you. Do you have a legal right to carry it, conceal, and all those other things? That's when the uneasiness takes place. But when you start talking about a gun locked in the trunk, I don't think you're going to have any issues with that. My gun is locked in my trunk. Here is my purchase permit. I'm well within the law. I mean,
and one of the ways in which all of this could be mitigated is through a concealed carry permit.
That's true.
And a concealed carry permit allows an individual a few extra rights in the state of North Carolina and with states that have reciprocity with North Carolina to accept that concealed carry permit. And one of those is, one, that you can take a weapon that you have and conceal it. As long as you abide by the laws of concealment within the state of North Carolina, you can do that. The other thing that it allows for in a lot of places that are federal firearms dealers will allow for you to buy additional weapons without individual purchase permits. That can be one of the benefits, quote unquote, is that you can save a little time if you're looking to make a purchase. But you guys, what are some of the requirements or restrictions to get a concealed carry permit in Forsyth County in the state of North Carolina?
Well, what I'm going to do is I have Deputy Cofer with me today. He works in our gun permit section. While I can answer the questions, I'll let him explain in detail to you. That way, because he's there every day, he sees a plethora of questions, a plethora of answers, and people that are coming in on a regular basis asking these same questions. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, first off, you got to be either a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident. And then you've got to take the gun safety course. There's one specific class. It's got to be with a state certified instructor. You get a specific certificate from that instructor. These online courses don't count for that. You may be able to apply for other states' out-of-state residency concealed permits, but it does not count for North Carolina. There's an application. You fill that out. There's mental health release that you have to fill out as a part of the application. $95 for a new application, $80 if you're renewing. Then there's a bunch of other disqualifiers that are in there. The application itself actually will refer to the particular statutes for those disqualifiers. If people have questions, they can always just call us up and ask us or email.
And I think the most common disqualifiers are if you've been convicted of a felony,
Right.
Convicted of a domestic violence offense, and a disqualifying mental illness could be one of them. Are there any other common ones that you see?
Other common ones would probably include DWI within the past 3 years, and it's from that clock starts from date of disposition, when it's handled in court, not from when you were charged, because DWIs may take a year or two or longer in our court system.
I've never known that to happen. That's crazy to me.
So for the DWI, it's from the date of disposition. You can't be on any kind of probation as well. That's a disqualifier. That's a federal disqualifier there, unless a judge specifically puts in your probation order that you still retain your rights for the ownership or possession of weapons. So those are, between DWI and the probation, those are two of the big ones that we see outside of the ones you mentioned.
So Deputy Cofer, if you've qualified for a valid concealed carry permit, you've gotten one, and then one of those disqualifying events happens, are you guys required to revoke somebody's concealed carry permit?
If you're just charged, we may revoke it. We look at it on a case-by-case basis, look at the circumstances surrounding it, and as long as it's still pending, we still have that discretion in the law on whether or not we will revoke it or not. We can't suspend it. It's either got to be, yes, you get to keep it currently, or no, we're revoking it. We talk to you before that happens. There's a little hearing. And then we'll explain to you what's going on, the appeal process if you want to go through that. And that's if the case is pending. We still have that discretion. If there is a conviction for one of those disqualifiers, that automatically we don't have the discretion anymore. It says we shall revoke at that point.
I see. So if a resident of Forsyth County is able to qualify, they believe that they are able to do that, and they want to sign up to get one, where do they go?
Well, if you want to sign up to get one, 301 Church Street, come down to North Church Street, the Sheriff's office, come in the door. We'll direct you to the permit section.
Okay.
It's a relatively easy process. We're there between 8:30 and 3:30, 4:30.
And I take it you guys would recommend to go ahead and have that safety training course done and out of the way, and try to get all your ducks in a row before you ever come down there.
Right, you have to have that original certificate from completing that class. And then another big thing that we see from folks is their ID or driver's license is not up to date. And to establish who you are and that you are a resident of Forsyth County, we go by your North Carolina driver's license or your North Carolina ID card. And so we see that a lot. We turn away several people each day that have an address on their driver's license that's 2, 3, 4 years old, and so we just tell them, go take care of that before we'll accept your application.
Yeah, and I mean, I gotta be honest, I think that for anyone that owns a firearm, doing a concealed carry permit can be extremely beneficial, and not for the benefits I said earlier. I really think it's for the benefit of having to do the firearm safety course.
Right, I would agree with you on that.
And because you can't ever have too much safety training when it comes to firearms. I mean, it's something that every time you go through a safety course, you can always take something away. And if you can take something away from it, then owning those weapons, you're going to mitigate a lot of potential issues that come up.
That's true. You can never get enough training. I've been carrying a weapon since 1984. I remember a couple of years ago, my father, who wanted to go through a firearms class, a carry concealed class. And so it was interesting going through that class with him. And as you said, it adds, you can never get too much training on how to use a weapon and the familiarization with the weapon. A lot of times you go and you get a weapon, you have bad habits. Guns have developed in so many ways than what they used to be, from the revolver to now you have semi-automatic weapons, nines with the capacity of 9 and 10 round magazines versus the old Chief Specials of 5 round revolvers. And so the training that you get in a class like that, it only helps you as a gun owner. At the end of the day, what everybody wants is a safer gun user, a more knowledgeable gun owner.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just joining us, this is For the Record with Greenwood Law. We are discussing concealed carry permits with Sheriff Bobby Kimbrough and his corporal. One of the issues that we had discussed earlier, Corporal, was ways that people can be disqualified from having a concealed carry permit. And one of those is mental health or mental illness issues. Is that something that you see commonly as a disqualifier? And if so, can you explain how that happens?
It's not a common disqualifier, but we do see it every once in a while. And it's not something where you would be disqualified if you're actively seeking treatment with your normal physician or psychiatrist. That doesn't necessarily disqualify you. It would be if it's to the point where it makes you unfit according to the court system or unsafe to handle that firearm. And it's not something that Jealous X could just go down and take out commitment paperwork and then you're disqualified. There's an entire process. There's several doctors that are involved, and then a judge has to sign off on that commitment paperwork in order for that to be a disqualifier for the mental health aspect.
And there are a few populations of people that don't have to do the safety training course requirement when it comes to concealed carry permits. That's correct?
That's correct.
I think it's ex-probation officers, law enforcement that are active. Are there any other ones that you can think of?
If you work for a company police and you go through the same training standards, they're going to have, just like we have our training scores, they're going to have those training scores as well. And those folks just bring in those range scores showing that they are able to carry currently with their agency, and that takes the place of that safety course.
So one of the major populations that you might think could circumvent that course but actually really can't is active duty military.
Unfortunately, no, they don't get around that.
So they still have to take the course.
They still have to take the course.
I think you had that happen, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I got another question. If I know we're talking about people getting these concealed carry permits, and there's a lot of rules around that. So if somebody is stopped, or you encounter somebody that has a concealed carry permit, what are they supposed to do when they're stopped if they have a concealed carry permit?
So, it's interesting you asked that question. I was out on patrol. I do go out on patrol, and I stopped a guy for speeding. And during the conversation, when I run the tag and the license, it will let me know that the person has a CCW. But it would have been helpful had he told me that himself, but he did not. But when you call the tag in and the person's name, it lets you know that they have a CCW on file. But you should let the officer, the deputy, whoever it is, stops you. Hey, my name is so-and-so. I have a CCW permit. I have a weapon. It's on my hip. It's under my seat. It's in my glove box. Wherever it may be, because that cuts down on a lot of confusion. So for an example, I stop you on the side of the road, and you legally have a right to carry that weapon. You got a CCW, right? And I say to you, I need to see your license and your registration. Let's switch roles. I'm now the motorist, and you are the officer, and you stop me. And you ask me for my license and my registration, and I say, yes, sir. And I reach for my license, I show you them, and then you say, I need to see your registration. And I open my glove box right there, and you see the weapon, and I'm reaching in. What would your reaction be?
be a nerve-wracking experience.
It'd be a nerve-wracking experience. It'd be a very uncomfortable experience, right? It would be a defining moment right then and there, right? You probably would hold on, sir. At the same time, you'll be reaching for your weapon as well, right? Mm-hmm. But that all could have been avoided had you said to me, or had I said to you, sir, my weapon is in my glove box. I have a CCW. Now, how would you like for me to proceed? Communication prevents a lot of mishaps. Communication prevents a lot of problems. And so I think that when we talk about gun ownership, there are some conversations on, and we should follow the protocols. We should follow them. It's more than just being to say, hey, I have a CCW. Because at the same time, the people that are out here working, serving, protecting, I'd venture to say that every fifth person on the street has a weapon. You know, we've seen an uptick in gun permits like I've never seen before, and so there are a lot of guns on the street. People have a right to own them. People have a right to possess them. It's an open carry state. I get all of that. All I'm asking is that if you stop, I have a weapon, I have a permit, I have a CCW. Here is where it is, because that's a very uncomfortable moment.
Sheriff, you mentioned that it is an open carry state. Can you explain for viewers your thoughts on the rules around that and how that applies to
we were having a conversation. I have an opinion, but I can't enforce opinions. You have a legal right to open carry. That means that you could walk around a grocery store with your weapon open carry. I had the experience I was in Lowe's, as a matter of fact, Clemens. The gentleman was on the same aisle I was. He had his gun in a tactical holster, walking around the store. So open carry means you have the right to openly carry your weapon. There are some exceptions to that, though. Federal buildings and places where they prohibit that. But if they don't have that, you can just walk around with your gun open carry. We enforce the law, not opinions, depending on who you ask. Some people feel very uncomfortable when they see someone walk in a place or walking around with a weapon.
It's hard not to make you be on edge a little bit, regardless.
Of course.
I own many firearms. I know Harold does. Mm-hmm. We've been around guns for a lot of our lives. But you see that and you can't help but wonder a few things, because you don't know what their experience has been, what their training has been, what their intentions are, any of that stuff.
So how do you feel when you see somebody walking with the gun open carry?
Makes anybody nervous, I think.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me wonder, well, why did I leave mine at home?
I got to stop leaving mine at home too, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Sheriff, I got to tell you, it was a pleasure having you on with us
Pleasure
today.
Pleasure was mine.
Corporal Cofer, thank you so much. Great information you were able to give our viewers.
Thank you.
It was truly a pleasure to have you guys on. I think you're doing a lot of good work out there for the residents of Forsyth County. Keep it up.
Thank you.
And hopefully maybe we can come up with something to have you back again in the future.
I like that.
Yeah, we would love to have you back. And again, thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
WTOB listeners, obviously gun rights are something that is a prevalent part of American society. It's something that we live with and work around every single day. It's important to know all of your rights surrounding it, and it's a lot. That's why we divide this up into a two-part series. And obviously, if you have any questions, whatever they may be, it's a great idea to get answers from people who know what's going on, so that you can abide by the laws correctly. Because firearms can and are oftentimes deadly, and a lot of these laws are meant to help mitigate any accidents or whatever may happen. So don't forget to join us next Sunday here on WTOB at 10:30 a.m. for another For the Record with Greenwood Law. Holiday season is upon us now. Thanksgiving is coming up here this week. And although it's never a good idea, especially since we have all these rideshare services like Uber and Lyft now, to drive while intoxicated, we do see an uptick in drunk driving cases around this time of the year. And it's important to know your rights surrounding traffic stops and drunk driving accusations, and we'll be tackling those issues and more next week.
But before we go, don't forget the Greenwood Law Bill of Rights. First, I will not represent myself in a court of law. Second, I will not do law enforcement's job for them. Third, I will not make statements when stopped by law enforcement. Fourth, I will not consent to searches when asked by law enforcement. 5, I will not be my own star witness for the prosecution. Remember, everyone, that it's not a crime to know your rights and assert them. Stay informed, stay safe. This is For the Record with Greenwood Law.